أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا ونبينا محمد بن عبد الله وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين اللهم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي رب زدني علما رب يسر ولا تعسر وتمم بالخير ثم أما بعد والحمد لله. Respected brothers, respected elders, respected viewers and listeners, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another one of our weekly Hadith classes brought to you from here, Darul Ummah, Jami' Masjid in Shadwell, East London. And today's Hadith class is on the Kitab Adab Al-Mufrad, as it has been for the past 3 lessons. Since Ramadan, we've started a new book, as we've said, and this book is called The Book on Islamic Etiquettes, compiled by Imam Al-Bukhari, rahmatullah alayhi, based on collections of a hadith named Adab Al-Mufrad. In our last week's lesson, we had recited up to hadith number 39, from hadith number 24, I believe, to 39. And today, inshallah, we'll be carrying on from hadith number 40. Hadith number 40 is titled as follows. It is named the chapter of باب بر من كان يصله أبوه. In our last lesson, we also covered a hadith which says, when our parents pass away, then one of the best ways to maintain our dutifulness and kindness to them and our relationship and our khidmah to them is by, of course, as you know, making dua, making sadaqah. But the one that we focused on was maintaining good relationship with the people that our parents used to love, their friends, their relatives. To take care of them is actually a form of being dutiful to our parents after they pass away. So in this hadith, which is narrated by عن ابن عمر سيدنا عبد الله بن عمر قال مر أعرابي في سفر وكان أبو الأعرابي صديقا لعمر فقال للأعرابي ألست ابن فلان. This is actually an athar, which is a narration and a statement from a Sahabi, which is that Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Umar was on a journey on one occasion and he passed a Bedouin man, and this Bedouin man said to him, are you not the son of Umar? He looks familiar, or he knows him from before. فقال للأعرابي ألست ابن فلان قال بلى. And then he said, are you not the son of this particular person? So they recognized each other and they realized that their parents were friends. فأمر له ابن عمر بحمار كان يستعقب عليه ونزع عمامته عن رأسه فأعطاه فقال بعض من كان معه أما يكفيه درهمان قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم احفظ ود أبيك لا تقطعه فيطفئ الله نورك. Which is that Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Umar, we've said, he met this person who was a Bedouin and he recognized that their fathers were friends, or his father was a friend to him. So in order to honor that person, Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Umar commanded that his donkey be given as a gift to that person, and he also took his imama, his turban, off and gave it to that person as a gift. So some of the Sahaba that were with him, they thought, he could have just given him any small gift like 2 dirhams or 3 dirhams, any small gift would have sufficed. Then how come he's giving him so much? So then Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Umar, he states that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that take care of those whom your father used to love. Don't sever the ties with those people, because this may well be a way of Allah cutting off His nur, His light from you. So it goes to show that maintaining ties of kinship, especially to those whom were loved by our parents, is one of the best ways to express our love and respect for them. Shaykh Khalas is fine. Take us, barakallah fiqh. So this is that hadith. As for number 41, عن ابن عمر عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال إن أبر البر أن يصل الرجل أهل ود أبيه, which is, as we've covered before, the Prophet Muhammad صلى الله عليه وسلم said that the most beloved of all dutifulness and kindness to our parents is that we maintain ties of kinship with those whom our parents used to love, our fathers used to love before they had passed away. This instruction of maintaining ties of kinship with those whom maintaining ties of friendship and love and affection to those with those who are friends of our parents or loved ones of our parents is not just in our religion. In fact, it is also narrated in the following in the following statement, in the following narration, that this was in fact the commandment even in the Torah and other scriptures before. And we see from this that Allah Azza wa Jal has kept the religion of Islam consistent throughout human history. Islam, to submit to Allah, Tawheed, La ilaha illallah, has always been the message of all of the Nabiyyin and all of the Mursaleen. Even some of the messages of Sharia, of Tashri' were the same throughout. And you find this, for example, this dutifulness to parents, obedience to parents is not just in our Sharia that we received through our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It was in fact also ordained to those generations before, or to those sacred books that were revealed. Is someone playing Quran? Someone playing Quran? Barakallah, no problem, inshallah. Just don't want to speak over the Quran, that would be best. Jazakumullah khairan. So yes, we learn from this another narration, or this narration, that this was in fact from the teachings of the Torah as well. So it goes to show once again the importance of maintaining relationships and love and affection with the friends and loved ones of our parents as well. Okay. And this is a similar message being repeated in a different narration, which says, chapter number 22, Babu al-wuddu yutawarath, that love is inherited. Love and affection should be inherited. So if there is someone that was loved by your parents or those whom you're inheriting from, then you shouldn't just inherit from them their property, you should also inherit from them their responsibility and their love that they used to show to others. So this is also in our teachings, in the teachings of our deen. And that is that عن أبي بكر ابن حزم عن رجل من أصحاب النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال كفيتك أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال إن الود يتوارث. The Prophet Muhammad صلى الله عليه وسلم said, indeed love should be inherited from generation to generation. Those whom our parents used to love and respect, we should also love and respect. Of course, as long as it's not leading to sin, or it's not leading to transgression. That is a common, known principle that we are all aware of. Then, this is very important, especially in today's culture and in Western culture, which is Babu لا يسمي الرجل أباه ولا يجلس قبله ولا يمشي أمامه. The chapter in which we will learn that you should never call your father by his name, and you should not sit before him or walk in front of him out of respect. Okay, if you need to sit before him because you need to show him where to sit, that's again exception. We know exceptions are not the rule. If you need to walk in front of him to show him the way, that's again an exception. We're not talking about that. So don't say what if and bring exceptions. We're talking about generally. To show respect to our parents, we should never call them by their names, walk in front of them, or sit before them. We should always allow for them to walk ahead and allow for them to sit first and give them priority in all matters. Of course, calling them by name is not really in our culture, but it should still be mentioned, because in the Western culture you've seen they call their dad by their name, even their mother by their name sometimes, which is completely against the etiquettes of our deen. Okay? And this similar can also be applied to your teachers, your mashayikh that you learn your deen from, because in Islam we have this notion that fatherhood is two types: fatherhood of biology and fatherhood of knowledge. Those who you take knowledge from are considered to be ubuwwatid deen. They are considered to be your parents in terms of the religion and the knowledge that you learn from them. And that's why they hold a high station and you should respect them. Of course, again, you're going to say, oh, what if he's abusive? Or exceptions. Don't talk about exceptions, talk about the norm. Mashayikh, ulama, kurama should be honored. You should not sit before them or walk in front of them or call them by their name. That's why if someone has to address a Maulana or a Sheikh saying, oh, Abdullah, Abdul Rahman, you would be considered to be su'ul adab, lack of respect. You should rather say Imam or Ustad or whoever it is to you, or Maulana or Sheikh, whatever you address him by. Calling them by name is considered to be disrespectful in our culture. Let's not talk about non-Muslim cultures, because that's not what we're learning from. And that is that أن أبا هريرة أبصر رجلين فقال لأحدهما من هذا منك فقال أبي فقال لا تسمه باسمه ولا تمشي أمامه ولا تجلس قبله. Sayyidina Abu Huraira saw two men And he asked one of them, who is that man to you? He said, this is my father. He said, don't call him by his name, and don't walk in front of him, and don't sit before him. And from that you can also take qiyas of other expressions of etiquette, right? For example, when it comes to eating and drinking, let your parents go first. When it comes to boarding on a plane or on a car, let them go first. You don't put your parents in the back and you go and sit at the front. These are certain things are known by our culture of adab and akhlaq. This is actually from our sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from the instruction of Sayyidina Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu. These are something that we should very much be conscious of. And it is your duty as a parent and as a responsible person to teach this to your children. If you don't teach them, then how are they supposed to know? You can't be waiting for them to know somehow by themselves. So you must show them, listen, you should show respect in this way to your older brother, to their older brother, you have to teach them. I can remember once I was walking with my father and I happened to walk in front of him. So he held me, I said, walk behind me. That's how you've got to do it. You've got to teach people in a practical way, in a realistic way. Otherwise they will never learn. And adab and akhlaq are actually supposed to be learned by practice and by emulating, by copying. Learning adab and akhlaq from a book and from a hadith isn't actually the normal way. We learn it by seeing and by being told, by being taught by others. And we've also included in our topic previously about extending your leg towards your elders or your parents, folding your legs in front of them. If that is seen as an expression of lack of manners, then this is as such, because urf is muhkam. Urf, the culture, is respected and adhered to as long as it does not oppose sharia. Right? So if your culture says that if you're sitting if you're sitting with your legs crossed in front of your father, this is seen as disrespectful, then you should not do that. Of course, naturally we know that you should not sitting higher than those who are than your parents and those who are your elders. These are things in our culture and in our etiquette. We should be very much conscious about this. However, if there is something in a culture that opposes the deen, then we can't obey that. For example, in some cultures they say you have to hold someone's feet to give salam to them. This is not from our sunnah, and rather it includes bowing or lowering yourself in front of another human being. We don't do that. We don't do that because lowing and bowing and prostration, etc., is only reserved for Allah Rabbul Izzati Jalla Jalaluhu. So, and be conscious about this. Sometimes your parents might even say, your wife can say salam to me by holding my feet. My dad was very strict about this. He said nobody is giving salam to anyone by holding their feet, because it's not from our sunnah, it's not from our tradition, it's not from our deen, because from one thing to another, it's a slippery slope. That's how bid'ah and shirk comes in. It creeps in like that, so we have to be very careful and deter it. Okay? Babu, is it allowed to address your father with his kunya? Kunya is basically, in the Arabic tradition, in the Islamic tradition, a person would be, even in our tradition, for example, we say, Aba Fulan. You're saying, instead of calling someone, for example, my name is Ashq Rahman, instead of calling me that, sometimes someone might say, Ya Aba Jibril, naming me by my eldest son, father of Jibril, like that. Eldest son, or a son, Ya Aba Adam, if it's, for example, if you go to Adam's school, they must say, Ya Aba Adam, for example. So this is a sign of love and affection. That's how in the Arabic tradition, in the Islamic tradition, we show love to someone, we show honor to someone. This person is a responsible person in our community, he's a father. So you see, Ya Aba Fulan, it's a way of honoring them. Does that make sense? So now, we know that you can't call your parents by their name. So the mas'ala that's being discussed here is, can you refer to your father with his kunya? For example, Jibril and Adam are brothers. Okay? Can Adam, who's the younger one, refer to me as Abu Jibril? That's the mas'ala. Refer to me. Not address me, but refer to me. Right? This is jaiz. According to Islamic teachings, we'll come to the hadith and athar. For example, my younger son, Adam, can say, my father Abu Jibril said this. Does that make sense? He can say, my father Shaykh Ashiq, but he can also say, my father Abu Jibril has said this. And this, you can see this, you might sound a bit distant, but if you take the example of how the wife addresses her husband in our Bangladeshi tradition, for example, say, Ahmadu Rabba, Jiblu Rabba. This is kind of like respecting, saying in a way indirectly, the father of Jibril, and that's a way of not calling by name, but also at the same time being specific. Now, I heard some very funny stories. You know, in our Bangladeshi tradition, like, wife is not allowed to call husband by the name at all. This is big mas'ala. But this is not necessarily an Islamic thing, but if someone does it out of respect, then it's appreciated. Okay? For example, the wife will call the husband in our silati tain hoisoin. Ji? Uni bolesen. Amader Barid Shahib, for example, he said he'll never say by name. So I've heard some funny stories about this. I don't know how accurate they are. Allahu alam. I don't think it's true, but someone told me it's a humor. I'll just say it as a humor. So don't take it as an evidence, yeah? Apparently, the husband's name is Alom. Okay? Alom. And the wife never calls her husband by his name, Alom. So one day she's reciting Surah Alam Tara. And she thought Alam Tara is Alom. So she said, I can't say my husband's name. Allahu alam. So apparently she said Tain Tara. A'udhu billahi min dhalik. Allahu alam. With exaggeration, yeah. But sometimes it is exaggerated. So bear that in mind. Okay, by respecting your elders, respecting your parents, respecting those who are senior to you is from our etiquettes and from our deen. عن شهر بن حوشب قال خرجت مع ابن عمر فقال له سالم الصلاة يا أبا عبد الرحمن. Okay. He says one of the in this incident خرجت مع ابن عمر فقال له سالم. So Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Umar had a son called Salim and another son called Abdul Rahman. So who is this? Abdullah is the son of Umar. Abdullah ibn Umar had two sons. He had many sons, but the ones I mentioned in this is Abdul Rahman and Salim. So Salim addressed Ibn Umar by saying, Ya Aba Abdul Rahman. O father of Abdul Rahman, meaning referred to his father. But this in the Arabic culture is seen as showing respect. So therefore there's no contradiction. He is addressing his dad with respect. In our culture, this may be seen as disrespect. So we must adhere to that. And instead of calling your dad saying, oh, Ahmad's dad, your dad might be like, who are you talking about? You're talking about me, you might get a whack, so don't do that. Rather, you should say Abbu or Baba, whatever you say, father, or Abba Jan, whatever you say, you should say that. But technically speaking, addressing your father with their kunya is considered to be jaiz shar'an. Now, next chapter is very important, extremely important, which is Bab, the chapter of the obligation of maintaining ties of kinship. And we've spoken about this in our khutbahs, we've spoken about this in so many different topics. We know a lot of this, but inshallah we'll go through the chapter since it's come to us. Now, hadith number 47, which is, okay, حدثنا كليب ابن منفعة قال جدي يا رسول الله من أبر قال أمك وأباك وأختك وأخاك ومولاك الذي يلي ذاك حق واجب ورحم موصولة, which is that Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was asked, Ya Rasulullah, who should I have most closeness to, maintaining ties and relationship with? He said, first of all your mother, then your father, then your sister, then your brother, then مولاك الذي يلي ذاك. And in those days they used to have something called mawla. Mawla, it has many meanings. One of the meanings of mawla is mawalikum, which is when someone had a slave, if they would free that slave, then they would have a relationship between them, not of slave and master anymore, but of muwalah, that they are wali and friends to each other. They are respectful friends between them to each other. And the master who's freed the slave is supposed to show affection and kindness even after the freedom of the slavery. So now, this is something that's very important. We can learn from this that, Islam was angled and poised towards freeing slaves and had a very big encouragement towards freedom of eradication of slavery. And at the same time, we see how the treatment is encouraged, that even if someone becomes free, even after that, you should be kind to them and have a relationship of muwala. Mawalikum is mentioned in the Quran even. Okay, and so this is saying that you should be showing our kindness to our mothers, our fathers, our sisters, and our brothers, and even our mawali, those who have been formerly slaves but now they're free men or free women. We should be kind and generous to them. And haqqun wajib, when he says this is a wajib, a right, a mandatory right upon you, and this is a tie of kinship which must be maintained and must be honored and not severed. عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال لما نزلت هذه الآية, Sayyidina Abu Hurairah is narrating or mentioning that when this ayah was revealed, which is وَأَنذِرْ عَشِيرَتَكَ الْأَقْرَبِينَ, and warn, i.e. the Prophet ﷺ is being told, warn your close family members, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, warn them with Islam, give them the news of Islam and warn them about the akhirah. Okay, فقام النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فنادى. So the Prophet ﷺ, what did he do? He addressed his family because Allah told him أنذر, warn. So he began the inzar, which is to warn. And similarly, Allah said, يا أيها المدثر قم فأنذر. Or the one that's covered up, shrouded, قم, stand and warn. And he said, وأنذر عشيرتك, and warn your family. So Allah ordains this commandment. And then the Prophet ﷺ does talbiyah and respond. So what does he do? He said, يا بني كعب ibn لؤي. He says, oh, the children of Ka'b ibn Lu'ay, أنقذوا أنفسكم من النار, save yourselves from the fire. يا بني عبد مناف, O children and the tribe of Abd Manaf, save yourselves from the fire. يا بني Hashim, as you know, Quraysh wasn't just one tribe. I mean, it's one big tribe, but they had smaller tribes within them to make that bigger tribe of Quraysh. And these are some of them. Okay, يا بني عبد مناف, بني هاشم, yeah, and the Prophet was from Banu Hashim. أنقذوا أنفسكم من النار. يا بني عبد المطلب, all the children of Abdul Muttalib, أنقذوا أنفسكم من النار. يا فاطمة, and then he goes more specific. Oh Fatima, his own daughter. يا فاطمة بنت محمد, oh Fatima, the daughter of Muhammad, about himself. أنقذي نفسك من النار, save yourself, O Fatima, from the fire. Now imagine if the Prophet is telling his own daughter that she has to save herself from the fire. And what about those people that say, oh, my dad was great awliya, my dad was great this and great that, I'm from this bangsho and that bangsho, this family and that tribe, and so I'm going to be saved. And I'm going to say this, I'm not trying to be talking ill of any particular people. Some people think that they will go to Jannah because their dad or their grandfather was a Maulana or a Sheikh or a Peer or a Murabbi or a great Wali. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like, yes, they may be given the opportunity to do shafa'ah on your behalf, but this is not a guaranteed way to Jannah. Does that make sense? Even more, some people think because of their tribe name, their family name, some will have this superiority complex of being, I'm from Chaudhry, I'm from this. And some people even think that they will be guaranteed Jannah because they're from the Sayyid family. Like I'm Sayyid, I'm from the progeny of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If the Prophet is saying this to Fatima, then who's closer, you or Fatima? So if Fatima radiallahu anha has to save herself from fire, then of course all of us have to. So this is a clear example. And this is from the most beautiful examples of the honesty and the clarity of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his fairness. You know, he even said on one occasion that even if Fatima, my own daughter, stole, she would never. But even if she did, then he would establish the punishment of theft upon her. This is called selfless commitment to justice. Whereas me and you, if your son does something wrong, you'll hide him. No, my son is an angel, he doesn't do anything like that. It must have been your son instead. If it's just you take sides, biased, we can't be biased. Okay, كونوا قوامين لله شهداء بالقسط قوامين بالقسط شهداء لله ولو على أنفسكم. Be upright with justice even if it's against yourself and your family. Can you do that? Think about it. Can you? You have to. That's the Islamic commitment. Who do you love more, Allah and His Rasul? All these people that you are related to. Okay, you're related to, that's fine. You maintain ties of kinship. But ultimately our commitment has to be Allah and His Rasul first. That has to always take priority. Okay, so he said, O Fatima bint Muhammad, save yourself from the fire. فَإِنِّي لَا أَمْلِكُ لَكِ مِنَ اللَّهِ شَيْءٍ. He said, Prophet Muhammad is saying, I don't own anything with Allah for you. I can't benefit you, I can't save you. Because Allah said in the Quran, بَلْ لِلَّهِ الشَّفَاعَةُ جَمِيعًا. All intercession has to be passed by Allah. Yes, the Prophet ﷺ will do shafa'ah for his ummah. Yes, he will do shafa'ah for his followers. He will intercede. You may do shafa'ah for your family. You may do shafa'ah for your loved ones. You may do shafa'ah means interceding. You may intercede on behalf of your loved ones, but at the end of the day, Allah has to allow it. Lillahi shafa'atu jami'a. Allah owns all intercession. Nothing can pass, because He's, of course, it makes sense. He's the ultimate authority. Okay? Example, like for example, we might say, oh, I'm going to invite this person to this country. They're going to be under my care. I'm going to give them shelter. But then he still has to be passed by who? By the government. They have to say, okay, authorized. So, وَلِلَّهِ الْمَثُلُ الْأَعْلَى. Allah has more authority and more power. So He has to pass all shafa'ah. غَيْرَ أَنَّ لَكُمْ رَحِمًا سَأَبُلُّهَا بِبَلَالِهَا or بِبِلَالِهَا, which is that except that I am related to you and I will try to do what I can because of this. I will maintain those ties of kinship. But as for owning something in the court of Allah, this is only up to Allah. Okay, this chapter also continuing from importance of maintaining ties of kinship, which is أن أعرابيا عرض للنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في مسيره فقال أخبرني ما يقربني من الجنة ويباعدني من النار قال تعبد الله ولا تشرك به شيئا وتقيم الصلاة وتؤتي الزكاة وتصل الرحم. A Bedouin person came and addressed the Prophet Muhammad صلى الله عليه وسلم while he was traveling. And he asked him and he said, can you please inform me what will take me to Jannah and save me from Jahannam? He said, worship Allah alone, don't associate any partners, establish the salah, give zakat, and tasilur rahim, maintain ties of kinship. This of course is later on, but in the early days of Islam, there was no salah, there was no zakat, there was no hajj. In the early stages of Islam, in the first few years of Islam, there was no, these were not made mandatory, obligatory yet. So the Prophet ﷺ used to command them saying, do tawheed, proclaim the tawheed of Allah, proclaim that I am His Rasul, and maintain ties of kinship, obey your parents, be dutiful to them. These were Islamic core principles, core teachings of Islam in the early days of Islam. And of course they remain core teachings of Islam even afterwards when other obligations came from Allah Rabbul Izzati Jalla Jalaluhu. This is a very interesting hadith in which there is a discussion between ties of kinship as a thing and Allah. Allah can address and speak to anything. In fact, the Quran says, وَإِن مِّن شَيْءٍ إِلَّا يُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِهِ. Everything in creation praises Allah. وَلَكِنْ لَا تَفْقَهُونَ تَسْبِيحَهُمْ. So Allah can speak to anything and anyone, and whatever Allah speaks to, they will address and they will speak. In fact, our skins, our eyes and our ears will all testify for or against us on Yawm al-Qiyamah. You know this as well. So now the conversation is not between your skin or your eyes or your ears, is a conversation between Allah and ties of kinship. Sulatul Rahim. So what's happening? عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال خلق الله عز وجل الخلق فلما فرغ منه قامت الرحم فقال مه. Allah made everything, and when Allah finished the creation of all things, Ar-Rahim, the ties of kinship. Rahim means also womb. So Rahim actually comes from the womb, because Rahim is the womb. When you're connected to someone with Rahim, means you are connected to them by blood, by flesh and blood, by the womb. So for example, your brother, your sister. Okay, for example, your uncles and your aunties are related to them. Why? Because they are from the same belly as your father and your mother. So all of these ties of kinship are connected to us through the womb. In fact, another hadith teaches us that Allah connected His name Ar-Rahman to the womb, to the name of the womb, Rahim. And one of the reasons for that, as we've said before many times, is that just like the womb envelops the fetus with protection, with kindness, with the right environment, with provision, regardless of which environment, regardless of, if the mother is running or walking or hot or cold, it's always, the fetus is always taken care of. In a similar way, just like this rahim envelops the fetus with mercy, Allah envelops us with His mercy. And our ties of kinship are connected by the connection of the womb, you'll see. Okay? So the womb or the ties of kinship spoke to Allah. Spoke to Allah. Stood up and spoke to Allah. So Allah said, silence or wait. قالت هذا مقام Allah said, speak. Allah said, speak. So the rahim, the womb, the ties of kinship, spoke to Allah and said, Ya Allah, this is the time that I can ask you, Ya Allah, هذا مقام العائذ بك من القطيعة. Oh Allah, I seek refuge in you that I should be severed. The womb is saying, I'm asking Ya Allah that you protect me, the ties of kinship, from being disconnected. That's how important ties of kinship are. That is speaking to Allah, saying, Allah, please make it recorded or make it established that I should not, i.e. the ties of kinship should not be cut up, severed, separated. Do you understand, yeah? I hope that's quite clear now. So then Allah said to the womb, or the ties of kinship, أَلَا تَرْضَيْنَ, O womb, O ties of kinship, will you be happy if I make this commitment? What's the commitment? That I will maintain connection with whoever maintains the ties of kinship. And I will cut off from whoever cuts off from the ties of kinship. Does that make sense? So if you maintain the ties of kinship, Allah will be close to you. Allah will have mercy upon you. But if you sever your ties of kinship, then Allah will become distant from you. And Allah will remove His mercy from you. So that's how serious ties of kinship are. So let's maybe reflect and think, how have each and every single one of us maybe have become distant from our sisters, our brothers, our family members who are close to us, who are connected to us by blood, flesh and blood. This is not jaiz in any way, shape or form. This is haram mutlaqan, that we should be severed from our ties of kinship. And then Sayyidina Abu Hurairah recited the following ayah, فَهَلْ عَسَيْتُمْ إِن تَوَلَّيْتُمْ أَن تُفْسِدُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَتُقَطِّعُوا أَرْحَامَكُمْ. Okay, Allah has made a connection between fasad and corruption on earth and the qati'atul rahim, cutting of the ties of kinship. There is always a connection between them. Corruption is connected to breaking ties of kinship, and breaking ties of kinship is connected to fasad and corruption on earth. In fact, it is a form of corruption on earth. حدثنا الحميدي حدثنا سفيان عن أبي سعد عن محمد ابن أبي موسى عن ابن عباس قال وآت ذا القربى حقه والمسكين وابن السبيل. الآية قال بدأ فأمر بأوجب الحقوق ودله على أفضل الأعمال إذا كان عنده شيء، فقال وآت ذا القربى حقه والمسكين وابن السبيل، وعلمه إذ لم يكن عنده شيء كيف يقول، فقال وإما تعرضن عنهم ابتغاء رحمة من ربك ترجوها فقل لهم قولا ميسورا كأنه قد كان ولعله أن يكون إن شاء الله، ولا تجعل يدك مغلولة إلى عنقك ولا تبسطها كل البسط فتقعد ملوما محسورا، ولا تبسطها كل البسط تعطي ما عندك فتقعد ملوما يلومك من يأتيك بعد ولا يجد عندك شيئا محسورا. قال قد حسرك من قد أعطيته, which is a reflection upon the ayat of Allah, which is narrated from Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas. It is a tafsir. قال, Allah said, وَآتِ ذَا الْقُرْبَى. I'll try to pull up the translation and read it from it. Okay. Abdullah ibn Abbas said, in these ayat, in Surah Al-Isra, Allah begins by stating the most important of the obligatory dues and directs man to the best of deeds when one has money to do so, saying, if you have money, give it to the near and next of kin. As you know, even in zakat, you can't give zakat to usul and furu', those who are above you and beneath you in terms of blood connection. But as for others, your cousins, your brothers, and so on, you're allowed to give them zakat. You're allowed to give them zakat even. So Allah is saying, give to whoever you can of your next of kin, and also to the needy and the traveler in need. Now, if say for example someone doesn't have the ability to give, they're very poor, then you should at least do something, isn't it? If someone asks you or needs your help, even if you can't give anything, then you must do something, which is, if you must turn aside from them in pursuit of an act of kindness you hope to receive from your Lord, then at least speak to them kindly. If someone's begging you and you can't give them money, then at least be kind. There's no need to be horrible and rude. So, sorry, I'm so sorry, I can't help. And that's of course for even someone who's foreign, someone who's not close to you. Imagine if they're related to you. Some people are very harsh, very, very. And wallahi, sometimes it's quite heartbreaking to see the reality of the matter, you know. You see sometimes one of the brothers or one of the sisters, one of the siblings are very rich. Very rich. And next door, completely nothing. And we see this sometimes, like back home you see that sometimes. It's very sad. Maybe one brother was lucky to go to London or something, or America, another guy didn't get a chance. So then there's a drastic difference. Whereas we should try to lift others with us, support them where we can, and help them where we can, inshallah. This is a duty upon us. Do not be miserly. Do not be stingy. Okay, do not be stingy. And he's comparing stinginess to the one whose hands are shackled to their neck. So this is a very important lesson that we learn from these ayat, that we should give if we can financially, and even if we cannot, we should at least share a word of kindness. Inshallah, we'll stop up to here for today, bi'idhnillah, and we'll talk about some more fada'il and virtues of maintaining ties of kinship and other topics to come in our next lesson, bi'idhnillah azza wa jal. Jazakumullah khair. Are there any questions for today? Yes.
You say that we need to be good with the people that our parents loved, right, after they passed. What about those people that our parents, maybe they were in some kind of they were not maybe in good terms? Should we try to fix the kind of relationships that our parents had, or is it not?
We should try to fix relationships all the time, even if they're alive or even after they passed. We should try to make amends. Because Islah is a responsibility upon Islah, what it means to make amends, is a responsibility upon every believer. And Allah talks about this in the Quran. Allah says, وَإِن طَائِفَتَانِ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ اقْتَتَلُوا فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَهُمَا. If there is two people fighting, especially believers, then you must make Islah between them. So if it's your parents, you should try to make amends. Okay? But the point of the hadith is that if there were people that they actually loved, then our duty is to maintain ties of kinship or ties or friendship with them. As for those whom they did not like, then it's not necessarily a duty upon us. You can try as an optional act to try and make amends, but it's not a duty upon you to be kind to them because they are not the loved ones of your parents. Rather, the duty is to respect those who are near and dear to our parents when they pass. And anyone, even your spouse. As you know, our Prophet ﷺ used to give gifts to the friend of Khadija radiallahu anha wardaha, even after she had passed, for many years, even in Medina. So, like the hadith says, al-wud yatawarath, that love is inherited. If your elder brother passed away and he loved someone, he used to have a close relationship with someone, you should also respect that person. Kindness should be inherited by those who inherit you. Any other questions?
Yeah. I had one from last week.
Yep.
You mentioned, the du'as are accepted based on like oppressed and the mother. So you know how if you really want something, like can you take your mother out 40 miles, for example, and tell them to make dua? Is that like you get double the?
Of course, I mean, if you can't take your mother out of her comfort zone without her consent, but if you happen to be on a journey, musafir, then of course you can say, Mum or Amma, you are traveling, please make dua for me. That's fine. But you can't you can't. Look, your mother's dua is always accepted anyway, whether she's musafir or not. But if you're in a safar, but at the same time, you can't disobey your parents by taking her out of her home without her consent. That's another crime. So we have to balance that out, inshallah. Any other questions? No? تمام. Okay. جزاكم الله خيرا. سبحانك اللهم واشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك. السلام عليكم ورحمه الله وبركاته.